How's it going, everyone? Flash here, and welcome back to Import Heaven. Well, the viewers have spoken, and with 50% of the total vote, the next game to be reviewed on Import Heaven is Wangan Dead Heat for the Sega Saturn. Mappy Kids came in second with 29% of the vote, so it'll make it to the next round. Stay tuned after the show to vote for the next game to review on Import Heaven. Wangan Dead Heat was made in 1995 by Genki and Pack-In Video. It's a 1 or 2 player racing game that was made exclusively for the Sega Saturn. It definitely isn't exactly a household name here in North America, but in Japan, Genki is more or less synonymous with racing. Genki is actually responsible for a great many racing properties, some of which are immensely popular even here, despite the developer's relative obscurity. Titles such as the Tokyo Extreme Racer series, known as Shutoko or Highway Battle in Japan, definitely show that Genki knows what's up when making fun-to-play arcade racers. But one game that most people won't know about is Wangan Dead Heat. While only loosely included in the Shutoko Battle pantheon, several entries exist in the series. Dead Heat is its debut title, seeing release exclusively to the Sega Saturn in 1995 by Pack-In Video. Pack-In... Oh gad. Pack-In Video could be seen as a death mark on any game that bears its logo, if Deep Blue is to be believed. After all, Deep Blue is Bullet Heaven HD's lowest ever scoring game. Does Genki's expertise allow for a playable game? Let's take a closer look.
3, 2, 1, start!
Wangan Dead Heat is a street racing game that has a fairly high emphasis on getting some, if you catch me. It features 10 women to seduce with your sick drifts and wicked race ethic. More on that in a sec. 3 modes exist: the scenario mode, which is more or less the campaign, a time trial mode to perfect your course navigation skills, and a battle mode for 2 players. After entering their initials, players select one of 3 cars, each with 3 different colors and different handling attributes. The default car, known as the Mad Viper, seems to work best, but any of the 3 can be acclimated to. And that's really the operative word here. Varying handling, speed, acceleration, and so forth makes it critical in knowing how to squeeze every last bit of speed out of your car, whether it be from pure horsepower or drift technique. In addition, players can select whether they play in manual or automatic transmission in the options menu. There is racing wheel support here, but if you're just using a standard Saturn pad, it's pretty damn bad. There is also no 3D controller support, so analog is out. By default, the control is otherwise pretty simple. The C button is your acceleration, while the B button brakes. The Y and Z buttons change your camera angle lower and higher respectively. The best view for us was a pulled-out view that lets players see more of the track. If you're using a standard drive car, the L and R buttons shift gears down and up respectively, and that's pretty much it. Despite such simple control, it's not uncommon for your car to careen into course barriers and corners thanks to the mostly crap handling of any car you choose. This will slow you to a comparative crawl while all 9 of your opponents open the distance between you and them with gusto. Making matters worse, there's a timer as well, meaning that if you don't make it to the lap checkpoint in time, it's game over, mate. Shoddy control and hullish AI also means that you'll probably be hitting other cars too. This sucks for a few different reasons. 1. You'll slow down. 2. You'll usually catapult the car you've hit forward, opening the gap even further. 3. You'll also ricochet into barriers and walls. It's a recipe for disaster, especially when a complete dick of an AI driver suddenly turns into you just as you're about to overtake them. You can easily fall from 2nd to 6th place in this regard. It's shit. But there's a bit of redemption here, if you know how to do it. Drifting is a critical part of most street racing games, and Wangan Dead Heat is definitely no exception. It's a little tricky on the outset. Drifting in the midst of a full-speed corner is triggered by braking mid-turn and carefully gauging where the nose of your car is. You can then feather your turn on the D-pad to manage the drift. Thing is though, a drift can get really choosy and will end up slowing players down more than speeding them up around the corners. Panicking doesn't help. Instead, once the drift initiates, not pressing the D-pad at all will often make the car hug the corner seemingly on autopilot, which works brilliantly. It's more a leap of faith than anything else, maybe even a leap of desperation, but only when this technique is mastered will you be able to really make progress in the game. Starting the race with a revved engine is also critical to making up time, since everyone else is Oscar Mike when the race starts. Catching the engine in the yellow or red RPMs before the solid red line will make for a quick, powerful start on go, rather than the painfully slow acceleration from idle. Bearing these techniques in mind, players should be able to gain the skills they need to make solid progress in the scenario mode. Now, speaking of progress, this is where the girls come in. The 10 ladies in Wangan Dead Heat make up the bulk of the game's main feature. After selecting their car, players choose from one of these 10 ladies in the hopes of getting them to ride shotgun. Each one has a video introduction and different conditions by which they'll agree to jump on in. The airline stewardess Marin seems to have the lowest standards since she doesn't mind if you knock the car around or hit other drivers, or place fourth in the qualifier. Rena is much more discerning. You have to place high while avoiding collision as much as possible. Getting first doesn't count with her if you hit the walls and other cars at speed. Once a player, in every sense of the word, am I right, woos a lady into their ride, it's on to an actual heat on one of a total of 4 highways. Placing anywhere but third or above fails the race. The good news is that a continue option exists so long as players keep trying, as long as they have the patience for it. When the race concludes, the passenger disembarks and it's on to the next qualifier. You can choose another girl or stick with what you know, and the process repeats. Whoever you impress the most will tag along for the final round. So what's the point to all of this? Pretty simple. The better you do throughout the game, the more skin is revealed when it's completed, and it's actually where the initially confusing age 18 rating comes from. A decent understanding of the Japanese language is probably a good thing to have here, but at the same time, the girls' reactions also pretty much let you know what's up. And hey, did you not do well enough in the end? The game lets you know by encouraging players to aim at a complete conquest. As mentioned before, the time trial mode can help in making the courses in the game easier to navigate, and the 2-player battle mode adds replayability to the game well beyond the scope of the main scenario mode. In a lot of ways, the battle mode is actually the best feature, since human opponents are more or less on equal footing with the iffy controls. The final feature implemented in Wangan Dead Heat is a simple save system that allows for players' best laps to be recorded with each play on any given course. Be it time trial, battle, or scenario. Players enter their initials to rank in, outside of scenario of course, since players' initials are inputted before the game starts. The backup save also allows players to pick up at the last qualifier they left off at in scenario mode. The presentation in Wangan Dead Heat is everything you'd expect from a mid-90s 32-bit title. This is the Saturn we're talking about here, and with no video card support, the visuals and FMV are going to look a little on the grainy side. The speech is a bit on the downsampled side too, so if players are hoping to clearly hear what the ladies are saying in the hopes of maybe translating it, they'll have to have a fairly sharp ear to do so. While we're on the topic of Wangan's girls, I just gotta say, some of their portraits when selecting them in scenario mode are less than flattering, and some of their video intros look like super awkward photo shoots. Well, that's probably because they were to begin with. Graphically, the play area isn't quite full screen in-game either, which probably helped in getting the game to run at a solid 30 frames per second, a feature that's emblazoned on the back cover. That said, the 3D visuals aren't especially bad for being on a system that's notorious for not doing a terribly good job at rendering them with no memory enhancements. The animation leaves a lot to be desired, but the visual effects work well, giving the road a pretty cool blurring effect as you whip by in a frenzied drift. Tunnels also have cool lighting tricks to them. Solid, but nothing mind-blowing even for its time. But one area that Wangan Dead Heat does shine is in its music. There are a ton of great standout tracks here, with the final race sporting a vocals-heavy track that fits pretty darn well, we gotta say. The sound effects are a bit on the weedy side though. There isn't much boom to the collision effects, and the engines sound a bit whiny. Regardless, they do still work fairly well in the grand scheme of things, but outside of the music, better sound is available in other racing games. Wangan Dead Heat has me very conflicted. It's definitely not a very good game mechanically, the AI is stubborn and dickish, and it's a little on the creepy side with the whole chick-macking aspect. But at the same time, it also grew on me once I acclimated to its admittedly shit control. But how does it stack up? Let's take a look. Controls like these aren't what I'd call ideal, but something tells me it's a lot better with a racing wheel. We may have to revisit this with additional hardware. Lengthwise, there's actually quite a bit of game to play here, mostly because of the amount of time players will spend retrying courses to actually place in a race. Remember, complete conquest. The real challenge in Wangan Dead Heat is not giving up thanks to the irritating hang-ups from wall collisions and impacts from asshole AI. Not especially strong, but solid nonetheless, Wangan Dead Heat's visuals do the job. It is too bad though that the ladies' portraits look a little on the unflattering side. While the OST is easily the biggest draw to the game on the whole, the actual sound effects in Wangan Dead Heat leave much to be desired. Wangan Dead Heat's main ingenious draw is basically seduction through speed. Meanwhile, the gameplay itself is startlingly rudimentary in the grand scheme of things, and there's nothing really to speak of in terms of car customization, like in the Shutoko Battle series. Wangan Dead Heat still has merits. It's great for two-player battles, there's a decent time trial aspect, but the actual scenario gameplay portion is a very sticky package overall. That sounds gross, but it's totally not supposed to. If you can acclimate to it, there might just be a game that'll keep you coming back. That also sounds gross. I'm gonna stop here. Wangan Dead Heat gets a 2.75 out of 5. Now that's a pretty harsh sounding score, but that's what happens when it gets technical. But I still ended up kind of liking the game. The good news is, if you're up for it, Wangan Dead Heat can be had for about $10 at auction on average. Also of note, this game should not be confused with the kinda the same but totally different Wangan Dead Heat plus Real Range. This review was produced with a discounted copy of the game purchased pre-owned at auction. The opinions expressed are our own and are not paid for by the developer, publisher, or retailer in any way. What's next for Import Heaven? That's up to you. Vote for which game you want to see reviewed on Import Heaven by using the voting card in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Only these votes are counted. Your choices for Episode 3 are Steam Gear Mash for the Sega Saturn by Takara, Fire Pro Wrestling 3 for the PC Engine by Human, and our returning runner-up Mappy Kids for the Famicom by Namco.